And welcome into another episode of Devil Dash, Josh. This is our 8th episode now. It seems like we're kind of stringing along, just waiting for that Sun Devil football. But now we got Big Ten returning this weekend. I think 2.5 weeks until Pac-12 football. I ask you every week to start off the show. How excited are you? What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to Big Ten football right now. I mean, I could say Pac-12 football, but that's not it. I mean, Big 12 football is going to be here sooner, and Big 10 football, sorry. And, man, I'm ready to see Ohio State get after it. Those boys are waiting.
Yeah, and the new AP polls came out today. And, obviously Clemson, number one with the 72 points they put up on Georgia Tech last week. Alabama, 2. Pretty easy 1-2. And then after that, there's a lot of question marks. I believe Notre Dame is 3, who just came off a really close win, 12-7 against Louisville, who's not that good. They're okay. Georgia only dropped 1 spot to 5, Ohio State 4. Outside of Alabama and Clemson, Ohio State's going to be the team to really watch. They're coming in kind of like fashionably late to the party, and I think that's a lot of things that ASU can do. We're going to get more into the show. Big Ten football coming back, Pac-12 very close. On this show, we're going to talk about where ASU's offense is going to come from. We mentioned last week that there's only one wide receiver with over 10 Division I catches on the roster. We're going to be talking about why the national media is giving ASU no love, and ESPN in particular. Boo, we don't like ESPN over here. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the recruiting class, the past ones, some future ones, and the current ones, because, we kind of started off the beginning of Double Dash, first few episodes, talking about the Herm train, the pro model staff, and the recruits they bring in for that. We're going to kind of go deeper into that, kind of look at we're kind of noticing a little bit of a trend in Herm Edwards and the recruits he's going after. So we're going to start it off, Josh. We're going to be talking about Frank Darby, Jaden Daniels. You were the one that brought the stat up last week that Frank Darby is the wide receiver. He's a senior for ASU, the only player with 10 receptions at the Division I level. Where do you think also their running back, who is either going to start or get at least, split the load at running back, got deemed academically ineligible. So outside of Darby, outside of Jaden Daniels, throwing and moving the ball with his legs, where do you see the offense coming from?
Well, I'll tell you where I don't see it coming from, and that's the running back position. I mean, those guys will get some solid reps, and they're going to get some good yards, some good plays, but I feel like that'll be just a spot on the team that really is kind of lacking this year. But that at the same time, that does give Jaden all the more opportunities to, make the plays like Darby. And to answer your question, I think Johnny Wilson has made quite an influence in the camp so far. Yeah. Bunkley Shelton too, some really good guys. It's going to be kind of a mixed bag though of offense this year. I mean, this is a year ASU, we're kind of young still, we're in the middle. We lost a bunch of our top playmakers, but it's going to be next man up mentality, I feel like, and that's perfectly suitable for Herm Edwards.
No, absolutely. I think last year, and especially 2 years ago when N'Keal Harry was here, we saw that ASU had so many weapons. They had N'Keal Harry, they had Frank Darby, they had Brandon Ayuk, they had Benjamin. They had so many people. They even had Manny Wilkins, who wasn't a great college quarterback, but he made the Green Bay Packers his first year out of college. So they had some talent. This year, when you're going up the roster and you're looking at skill positions, Frank Darby, everyone that's an ASU fan knows who that is. We have Ricky Pearsall, who just opted out due to COVID concerns. He was supposed to be another one that was going to get a lot of carry or a lot of touches with the ball at receiver. Other than that, our offensive line, we're returning 3 of 5 starters, which is a little bit of a concern, but the 2 people we did replace are graduate transfers, so they're not going to be freshmen. They're going to be people with experience. And then our freshman running back, DeMonte Trayanum. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. It's Trayanum. He's a freshman. I believe he redshirted last year. I could be wrong with that, but he's someone that's, since ASU has been scouting him, has really been, the successor to Eno Benjamin. And we saw Eno Benjamin do that with DJ Foster, who are both now on the Arizona Cardinals. But, Eno Benjamin, we saw him his freshman year come in against Colorado and have that huge game. And they pretty much single-handedly won us the game against Colorado. And the thing about Herm Edwards is, we didn't really dominate a whole lot of teams last year. We won a lot of close games. And we relied on winning some of those big games with big plays from our stars. So, the big play by Ayuk, some big plays by N'Keal Harry when he's here, Benjamin busting off a big run. How many times last year did, the ASU couldn't run the ball and it seemed like our offense couldn't do anything, but it was big plays in the game that made the difference. So that being said, with a young ASU roster, I'm not really looking for Frank Darby to put up 100 yards a game. I'm looking for maybe that 150-yard play in the middle of the game that really ignites that offense on a 3rd and 10. That's where we need someone with Darby's leadership to step up on those big 3rd down plays, or when you really need a score on this drive. That's when we don't need Darby to put up 150 yards, 100 yards a game, because to be honest, he's probably not capable of that.
Yeah, I mean, if he is, wow, great for us. And at the same time, I don't think anyone's really expecting him to, go out there and just drop like 1,800 yards this season. That's a scenario where you're looking at ASU possibly in the college playoff if a star has a breakout season like that. But let's not get too far ahead.
He'd probably be wide receiver of the year if that was.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing to look for in the new Sun Devil offense, and from Zach Hill, a new offensive coordinator, he's really looking to implement some tight end play into our offense, and that's really something that ASU hasn't seen the likes of, and I'd say the past, 5-6 years even.
Yeah, you can date back to Coach Graham. Obviously that was only 3 years ago, but Coach Graham loved his tight ends. He kind of went away from them at the end of his tenure. But ASU is. I know a huge question mark is with Ricky Pearsall going out or talking about stopping because of COVID, that I'm really not worried about these wide receivers. I don't think they're going to be fantastic. I really don't think they're going to be that bad. I have the highest expectations for Johnny Wilson because he's 6'6", and he's an absolute stud. He's one of those guys that's built to just come in and make a difference immediately. But the reason I think I'm not expecting too much from these guys is because I'm expecting this growth from Jaden Daniels. This team showed time and time again that it only goes as far as Jaden Daniels takes them. And these are freshman wide receivers, yes, but these receivers aren't going to be catching the ball if no one's putting a good ball to their hands. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. We've seen Andy Dalton tonight. He can't even move anything for the Cowboys. And, that offense was one of the best offenses in the NFL with the Cowboys. So your quarterback, your team goes as far as your quarterback takes you. And I think if Jaden Daniels truly is ready to take that next step, that these rookie freshman wide receivers aren't going to look like rookies if Jaden Daniels has that leadership trait and that next level step.
Well, yeah, everyone on the team is going to, leak confidence onto one another, and that's going to be contagious, just like scoring points is and good defensive plays. But these guys are young, and, Herm is going to give them the talk about, look, you guys don't need to go out there and try and do too much. Let your quarterback run the offense. Let him do his thing. It revolves around him. Jaden's the type of player where he's going to make the right decisions at the right time, and he's going to get the ball in the hands of the open wide receiver. And that's all you can ask for. That's all. You can't ask these guys to go out there and, average 18 yards per catch like Brandon Ayuk did in his last season at ASU. That's just ridiculous.
It's so tough. Here's a question for you. If the exact same Jaden Daniels from last year comes back to this team, what do you think ASU's record is going to be? Obviously, he was a great quarterback last year, but he wasn't someone that's going to win you a championship. So if this is the 6-game schedule and we see the same Jaden Daniels, no matter if we had Ayuk and Brandon Harry, what do you think the record would be?
Well, this season, really weird. I still think, honestly, even if Jaden is leaps and bounds better this year, I still think we lose to, say USC or Utah. Utah, think about Utah coming into our game. What is Jaden going into that game? What's his mentality? He has to be going in there like Sam Darnold. I was seeing ghosts. Remember that?
Yeah.
I watched that game and I went through a whole box of Kleenex, man. That was pathetic. And Utah's gonna come into that game just with fire under their bellies.
Absolutely.
Like, man, we just destroyed these guys last year. Like, what do they got this year? That's really nothing else. Less, if anything. So, yeah, Jaden really has to step it up, and that's why, like I kind of said, this year Yeah, it's gonna be a good couple of games this year, like the first one with USC and how the shortened schedule is. But this should really be like a kind of a test run for hopefully a regular season next year.
Yeah, we have a question from. I'll get right back to what you just said. From Sherry B. Hey Wills, who do you see stepping up leadership wise? It's a tough question. I mean, we talked about it. The quarterback, Jaden Daniels. I mean, he is the captain of your team. He's the leader. He's a big player, and he's the guy that he's probably the most talented player on the team. So no matter if he's a leader or not, he could be the worst human being in the world, which he's not. He's a great kid. But that being said, people listen to what he says. Last year he came onto campus. He was, 6'3", 175 pounds, freshman. He didn't really have that body type that demands respect right off the bat. So to see someone step up, I really want it to be Jaden Daniels. We kind of saw sometimes that he was a rookie last year, not necessarily on the field, but just leadership-wise in general. I mean, he wasn't an all that quarterback, but he showed a lot of signs. So the big thing for ASU moving forward is just trying to take that next step with Jaden Daniels. And I think that is the biggest thing to look forward to. And it's going to be a big test week one because that's a quarterback who could potentially go number 1 overall in 2 years' drafts. So it's going to be a big game to keep an eye on and really a litmus test of where Jaden Daniels is at.
Yeah, Jaden will step up. I mean, he has to. I mean, this is, his primal season.
Yeah.
But I feel like an X factor guy that you could see stepping up this year and really making a big impact in ASU is Frank Darby. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 really young wide receivers looking up to him right now. And if he can instill this, this game plan and this ethic of being a student to Herm and all his teachings and how to play the game, and you play the game to win, I think he can make a huge impact on these young wide receivers and potentially set ASU up in the future.
Absolutely, just because he's the only one with experience at that position. So it makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I want to give you one more name. Merlin Robertson.
I like that.
This is a name to keep an eye on. He's a middle linebacker for ASU. He won a defensive freshman of the year in the Pac-12, which is a great honor. Don't quote me on this, I believe Terrell Suggs was the only other person in ASU history to win that award, the freshman defensive player of the year. I could be wrong with that. So if you know for a fact, comment in the chat. But he had a great freshman year. Fantastic. One of the best linebackers in the country. In sophomore year, he didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have that best player on the defense type year. And I think that's someone who not necessarily leadership-wise, but, could take the next step leadership-wise just by his play on the field. Because if you play well, you demand respect. And it's just as simple as that. So we're going to be moving on. We talked about the offense. ASU, I know we have a lot of question marks that, here we know that what we have here, if that's a better way to say it. ESPN has been giving ASU absolutely zero love nationally. Absolutely zero. The ESPN FBI gives them a 0% chance to make the college football playoff, which probably about right, 0%. But only a 3.4% chance to win the Pac-12 South. Not the Pac-12 total, the Pac-12 South, which this is a Pac-12 South with Colorado, with University of Arizona, and with UCLA. These are 3 teams that are not supposed to be good this year. So that being said, obviously USC is the heavy favorite. According to ESPN, the heavy favorite. I think a lot of people in the Pac-12 know that Utah and ASU are very legit this year and are going to give USC a real big run for their money. But Josh, what do you think it is? Why does ESPN give ASU no love and recognition? Why?
Well, for starters, I'd have to say that we're in the Pac-12. I mean, the Pac-12 hasn't really – I feel like the Pac-12 hasn't got respect as a conference since flipping Reggie Bush was in the league. I mean – and then he got caught for paying, and they got caught for paying him. So that looks bad, but I don't know. I mean, look, it's Arizona State. What do we really have to offer? I mean, look at our team in terms of Georgia, Clemson. Like those guys they break it down simply. Trevor Lawrence, Jaden Daniels, Travis Etienne, Daniel Nagata, or you know what I mean? It's just
absolutely
things like that. And I mean, you just kind of go off of coaching too. I mean, Dabo is just cleaning up right now, and they're gonna stick to those teams, and until ASU does something way out of pocket and proves the whole country wrong, that's when they'll actually get that love.
And I think it's interesting because, we talked about this on Twitter with one of our colleagues from USC, Nathan Ackerman. And he was talking about how he thinks USC, not necessarily he thinks they'll win, but they have a shot of getting into the college football playoff and playing a good game against Alabama. And I'm sorry, Nathan, I respect a lot of your sports takes, but this is not one of them because I posted the screenshot of 2016 when Alabama played a USC team that had a freshman, Sam Darnold, who didn't really come in until the very end of the game, didn't play all that much. I know teams get better as the season goes on, and that's a big thing. But USC lost by 50 that game, or like 52-6. It was close to it. My argument is that I think ASU is going to need to make this statement and make it quick against USC. If you actually want these college football playoff hopes, you're going to need to come out and win by 17 to 20 points. Make that statement that like this team is good because you don't have that time to take that loss in week 1 and build on it and make it towards the end of the season as a high-ranked team because we're only playing 6 games. USC lost by 50 to Alabama. Alabama's a great school. USC built that program back that year and won a Rose Bowl. They beat, I believe it was Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Or Penn State, yes. It was that great with Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley. But, it's just you have to have all your kinks ironed out before the season starts because you don't have that room for error that you normally do that USC had in 2016 or that you have losing a week 1, maybe that a Florida had with a bad loss in week 2 or 3. Josh, we have a question for you here from Sherry B. Are there any other up and coming X Factor players? Is there a name, a young player that you're looking for that maybe has been here before, maybe is a new recruit, but it's not going to be the best player, but it's going to make a difference on this team?
Well, I'm not sure if I said Frank Darby. Frank Darby has to be an X Factor player this season, and a couple of other young players that I would look forward to making a splash is, like Will said earlier, Johnny Wilson. I mean, dude's 6'6". How hard can it be to catch a football when you're a good 2 feet over every other person in the air,
Well, and we have Curtis Hodges, who's I like him, but he's 6'9", and it seems tough.
Tight end, right?
He's a tight end turned wide receiver, but he's like 6. I played against him in high school, actually. He's like 6'9", but seems tough for him to catch balls. So I don't want to use that as an excuse.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who Zach Hill's been tight end position, so he's been getting some reps in practice. And also, Sherry, DeMonte Trainum. I mean, he's going to be getting the reps at the running back position. He's a tough guy from Akron. I mean, he's going to be legit.
I'll give you 2 other names. These are well-known players, and they're not necessarily someone that, you're like, oh, if this guy plays well, we're going to be a better team because of it. These 2 players are players that we need to play well, but there are starting cornerbacks, Chase Lucas and Jack Jones. It goes without saying, you're not going to beat teams if you can't guard their number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. I talked about this in an article. I really don't think, ASU's never really had lockdown corners. We had Demarius Randall, who played in the NFL for a while, but they thrive on defense by pressuring the quarterback and turning the ball over, getting interceptions in timely moments. And that's why when ASU got up to number 6 in the country back with Taylor Kelly at quarterback, they were turning the ball over and they were scoring about 35 points a game. They were creating turnovers. Sorry, not turning the ball over, creating turnovers. And you don't really need a defense. We don't have a Utah. We don't have a Washington. We don't have that stud defense. You need to make plays when plays matter. And I think that's going to be a theme on defense and offense for, the entire season. It's a really, really easy thing to say. Like, yeah, if you get a pick 6 in a timely moment, you're going to win the game. Yeah, I know that's easy to say. I'm talking about not necessarily every game, but 1 to 3 of those in a season. And when I say big moments, I mean against the USCs. I mean against the Utahs, to put some respect on your name. I don't want to see a tie game against Colorado in the 4th quarter where a pick 6 happens. I know, obviously, I would love a win, but when I say big games, those are the games I'm talking about.
I mean, you can't – that because a pick 6 at the end of the game just bails you out of a loss, a bad showing.
Exactly, and you kind of bury over the fact that we didn't play all that well against a bad team.
Yeah, and – can't have that. I mean, and Herm will let him hear it, of course, but he's going to be the first one to do that. But like you said, you need to have those key plays, those big plays in the big moments. That's what instills confidence and just the trust in your teammates to make plays. And
no, absolutely. And The thing about, I think, this USC game is it really our season. It's not on the line against USC, but realistically, if you lose to USC, you're going to need to run the table against a Utah team who's probably not as good as USC, but still very good. And then you also need USC to lose twice. So that's a loss to Utah, and that's a loss to someone else. So where do those losses fall in 5 games? I don't know. I think Utah could lose twice. I think they're still inexperienced and young, but this game is, if you can get that timely pick six, maybe an onside kick, a surprise onside kick, that is something that you can take that momentum and ride it. It is a 6-game season. You're telling me these players, in week 6 aren't going to remember that game against USC in week 1, be like, man, we're really kicking ourselves because we lost to USC. Or if you beat USC, you allow yourself a loss to Utah because then you can create the 3-way tie, or even if Utah loses twice, you win outright. So this USC game is going to be big to see where the X factors step up, who they are, and when they are coming from. So that's going to be 3 things to watch for this first game, and maybe ASU can gain some respect nationally.
And hey, before we go on to the next segment, can we just talk? Hold on, November 7th, ladies and gentlemen. Stop what you're doing and go look at all the college football games being played on November 7th. Clear your schedule, please. If you're a real college football fan, my goodness. Clemson plays that's Notre Dame. Ooh.
Yeah, and we're going to have Thunderstruck, ASU theme song blaring here at 7 a.m. before the 9 o'clock, the big noon kickoff. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about, a lot of those players we just mentioned, the Merlin Robertsons, Jaden Daniels. Has there been a trend with ASU athletics and under Herm Edwards that you think you've noticed? I mean, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. I didn't prepare you too much for this one, but that ASU athletics sees a trend in the type of players they want. I know we have the pro model and stuff, but kind of the, is it players that aren't all that talented but give it their 110%, or is it athletes they're going after? What do you think ASU has been and should be targeting?
I think it's a big mix. I mean, I feel like, Antonio gets certain guys on defense, so does Marvin. And I guarantee Herm's got the biggest array of guys out of all the coaching staff. But I know one thing: we clean up on the West Coast, and there's a ton of talent out there.
And so I'm going to go through some of the names that Herm has recruited. His first year on here, it was 2018. Wasn't really fully his recruiting class because he came in the middle of the year and didn't get a full season to recruit. Some of the names on this list, if you're an ASU fan, these are probably recognizable names. Merlin Robertson, Ashari Crosswell, AJ Carter, Brock Sturgis, Brandon Ayuk, Demetrius Flowers, Isaiah Floyd. There was only one person in this recruiting class that was a 4-star recruit, and that was Merlin Robertson. Everyone else was a 3-star or below. And I'm going to keep reading some names before I get to my point here, because I just want to kind of show this thread. Hidden gems. Last year, we got one of our highest rated recruits ever in Jaden Daniels. That's a great get. We got Joey Yellen, who is now the starting quarterback at Pittsburgh. He transferred out. Jack Jones, the starting corner I mentioned earlier. Jordan Clark, who is the son of Ryan Clark, who is currently doing the Monday Night Football broadcast with Steve Levy. His son goes here. Keon Markham, Ethan Long, who was he was a captain last year, actually, as a true freshman, didn't even start. Nolan Matthews, Donovan West, who's a starter on the offensive line. It's just, there's so many people. Ricky Pearsall's on here. And these are people that aren't highly recruited that get playing time. And the trend I'm noticing with Herm, I mean, I know this year we did have a better recruiting class. When I say better, I mean nationally with higher star rankings. Right. When I say this, I love that, ASU has really, really struggled recruiting in Arizona. We had DJ Foster, which is one of the best gets we've gotten in a while. We got N'Keal Harry, which was a fantastic get out of Chandler. But ASU has never really, besides N'Keal Harry and DJ Foster, gotten that dude from Arizona. The Tyler Shrug, sorry for mispronouncing his name. He's going to start for Oregon. Oregon's a number 8 team in the country, and he went to Chandler Hamilton. We have quarterbacks. We have Brett Hundley, who put up a fantastic career for UCLA and now is the backup for the Cardinals. He went to Chandler. He didn't come to ASU. this doesn't matter anymore. We are getting recruits outside of Arizona. We have this California pipeline that, Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce have done a great job establishing. And we're kind of just getting players of need, which it sounds stupid because, you never really know what you're going to need in college. You never know who's going to show up. But, in the NFL, it's always, with draft, is it position of need or is it best player available? ASU hasn't really been going just after the best position available. We heavily targeted wide receiver because we lost our two best, and we got running backs because we knew Eno Benjamin. We got corners because our corners were graduating. We got offensive linemen as graduate transfers. We're looking for people that are ready to play now. We don't care about your talent. We don't care about this. Herm Edwards wants you to come in and compete right now. So it doesn't matter if you're 3 stars. If you're a grown man and you're willing to give it your all for the Sun Devil squad, I think that's the trend we're noticing. It doesn't have to be these 5-star guys that are 4.2 40 that ASU is going after. It's players that want to win, and it doesn't matter how it gets done.
Yeah, and I think the big theme of this year, especially the offense that Zach Hill and Herm have been preaching, is physicality. The more physical you play, the tougher team wins. I mean, that's what they've been preaching, and they're, like Will said, they're just looking for guys to play, man. Get on that field and play to win the game. That's literally Herm's famous speech.
And boy, does Herm ever play to win the game. We do not blow anyone out. He is the definition. If you looked up game manager in the dictionary, there'll be a picture of Herm Edwards with the picture saying you play to win the game. That being said, with the recruits, the players that want to be here and win now, we're almost running out of time. I want to get your thoughts. We talked about it last week. What does Chad Ochocinco, the father, not the one that's at ASU now, Ochocinco is one of the best receivers of all time. He's up there with Terrell Owens in antics and kind of celebrations of being a goofball. And if you follow him on Twitter, all this stuff. What does adding someone like that to the sidelines do for a young receiving corps? Because I'm going to explain a little bit here. We saw with USC when they had Snoop Dogg, I'm sorry, that was just the first thing that came to my head, but celebrity among celebrity when Reggie Bush was there and Matt Leinart, and they were a dynasty then. And that really got to a lot of those young players' heads. I think if you watch the ESPN 30 for 30, just an 18-year-old having Snoop Dogg on your sideline at practice, it gets to your head. What do you think? Is this a good thing where Chad Johnson can sit back and teach these young kids some things, or is he going to be like the father that's like, you need to go out and get your yards, you need to go out and be a stud? Like, do you think this is going to be a positive to have a legend like this on the sideline? Do you think it's going to be kind of a negative for these younger kids?
Look, I mean, it's going to affect everyone differently, and obviously some people are going to take it negatively. That's just how some people are. But for the majority of the part, I feel like this is a huge positive for ASU. I mean, just think about the impact, you said on the wide receivers. Think about the whole team. I mean, the whole team is going to be sitting there doing walkthroughs, or we're full pad practice now, and be like, yo, Chad Johnson is on the sidelines, man.
Yeah.
He's looking right at me. I'm not gonna get flat on my ass right here, you know what I mean? So I mean that just helps all the way from the ground up, from practice up, and just being a veteran mind, a football mind that, the wide receivers can pick through. And like, what was that thing you sent me the other day? He got a tweet from his son asking him about some certain route.
Yeah, it was how to break
the coverage.
It was during practice. Chad Johnson posted it on Twitter. It was his son called him up after the first ASU practice and said, "Hey, Dad, these DBs were showing me this coverage. How do I break this? I was really struggling with this." And Ochocinco said it brought a tear to his eye. This is your oldest son. He's following in your footsteps, playing receiver, wearing the exact same number, and he's going to you for help. If we continue to see stuff like that's going to be awesome. The question marks I have is, we've seen tweets. It's like, "Hey, Tempe, where are we turning up before the game?" Like from Chad Johnson. That's a celebrity. There's going to be a lot of kids that, want to party with this guy after the game. They want to party with him before the game, maybe. Like, I'm really skeptical about how he's going to be an influence on these 18-year-old kids. I'm less skeptical than I should be, I think, because Herm Edwards isn't going to allow that to happen. He's not going to allow someone to step on the sideline and take over. But
right.
I think it's just something to watch for with practices and the season moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Herm's. I feel like Johnson will respect Herm because let's be real, college coaches and NFL coaches are professionals, of course, in each their own way, but Herm is like that guy. Like he's not his first year college coach. Like this guy's been around the ringer, and Chad Johnson knows that, just like everyone else.
I think that's a really great point that I kind of missed out that you just brought on, is that Herm Edwards isn't a new coach that that this star is going to be like, you're an idiot. He's an established wide receiver that these players will look up to. Any last words for the show before we get out of here, Josh?
4 more weeks. I don't even know how many more.
I think it's 3 weekends, so 2 weeks. After 2 more weeks of college football, we will be game week of Pac-12 football. Lastly, we just want to thank you guys for watching. Follow us on all social media at Dash Sports TV. Check out our website, www.dashsports.tv. And we now do columns, all my columns for sportspac12.com. Come out on Twitter and on the website. I've been writing about all things ASU. Look out for an article tomorrow coming out. Make sure to go give them a follow at SportsPac12 and at Dash Sports TV. For Wills and Josh, we thank you, and we will see you next week.